TV.
Oh, I'm always excited to hang out with you.
We do appreciate it. So there's a lot to discuss this month, a lot that's been going on both at the federal, national level and feeling it here in town. One thing that I definitely want to talk to you about are these recent protests. This weekend was the Hands Off protest that brought thousands downtown Grand Rapids, and you were one of the folks who spoke at the protest. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you decided to speak at a protest and how you feel like you fit into this moment right now?
Yeah, well, it's just, I am deeply inspired and moved by the millions of folks throughout our nation who joined these protests. I really am, and I'm deeply moved by groups like Indivisible, Palestine, Solidarity GR, who were a part of this movement. I'm deeply inspired by them. And how I fit in is as an elected leader, it is on us to speak truth to power. And I represent the most diverse ward in the city of Grand Rapids, and I want to speak up for marginalized communities, people of color, women, children, folks who are differently abled, and I believe that's what this rally was saying. And I have seen firsthand, as someone who most recently worked in the environmental space, how deeply concerning these cuts. I think of the president's billionaire buddy with the chainsaw, and that is exactly, as an elected leader, what I'm seeing at the federal level. And this rally was simply saying, we need a better way to go about this. Yep, there's ways that we can trim fat, but laying off park rangers and things is not the way we go about this. And there's a way that this needs to be metered and at a slower pace. So folks came together to rebuke the notion of that we shouldn't have things like diversity, equity, and inclusion. That was also huge for me to talk about. And when I spoke, I said the simple message of, we must show love and togetherness with the same conviction that folks show hate. No one does hate or terrorism, for example, sort of half pace. They go all for it. They throw themselves into it. So that's my message in these really challenging times, is we need to do the same thing with love. And I, like I said, was deeply inspired by it.
Great. Was there anything that you took away from the protest that you didn't walk into it with?
Well, I have been an activist or an advocate for human rights for close to 10 years now. So I knew the spirit that was going to be there, but I was amazed by the number. I did not think it was going to be that many people. What I've taken away is folks are inspired, and there's a good energy about it. I have gotten the calls and the emails and the texts about fear and anxiety, which is valid, but I had not seen recently folks being so inspired and driven to fight for positive change in these challenging times. So it was refreshing for me to see that aspect of it and see how we can, as humans, let anxiety and fear drive us into positive places. So that was really it left me in awe. It was a really good feeling on April 5th.
And the role that you're in is a nonpartisan role. Have people discouraged you at all from getting involved in political arenas like a rally in a nonpartisan role that you're in?
Well, I have to be truthful for you. It wouldn't work for me. You can't stop me, because that's what folks wanted. I have to let people know that this was the first year for Grand Rapids City Commission races that it was on an even year, a presidential election year. Folks knew, putting me in this seat, that I was a proud Democrat, that I am someone who is rather progressive. I am the first queer person within this seat. My race was very political, and I make no apologies about that, because life is political, and we do need folks like myself. I'm very proud that the mayor appointed me to our legislative team, right? Fighting for the policies that we fight for at the state level and the federal level, because I also have been a policy strategist and know about these things. So I think both my folks who I serve, my constituents who I serve, and my colleagues want to use that background for the betterment betterment of our city. And I would love to talk more about our legislative agenda because that just gets me excited. But I have no apologies for that. It's nonpartisan. But what we're seeing right now, if we don't speak out against it at the federal level, then it will continue. And I believe, in my opinion, that it will harm people. And I won't allow that to happen with whatever, levers and control that I have here at the local level.
There was one instance recently where I saw you speak up on behalf of your community, and that was at a recent public safety meeting after watching the upcoming All Access PD trailer for the documentary about GRPD. And I thought it was, pointed that you, or something to highlight that you spoke up about this documentary potentially bringing up or highlighting traumatic events that folks go through, especially with GRPD or police departments. And you asked for a contingency plan for those folks. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
And what I meant by that was, are we thinking of how we are going to have open, transparent, and honest conversations, of which the chief said he is dedicated to? And I'm very proud to partner with him. And that is once again why the mayor put me on public safety. This is an ongoing relationship. I view everything as a relationship. And just like in our personal lives with our family or partners, it's never going to be perfect. So his answer was very inspiring, and I'm hopeful that like he said, he's open. Whoever wants to have serious conversations, not just F the police, forget this, we don't believe in you, but hey, I have some feedback for you. Just like we want to hear from a good friend. We don't just want to hear from the friend that says we're awesome. We want the friend that tells us we have something in our teeth. So the chief says he's open to that. I'm very happy about that. What I meant was he believes that this is gonna, the chief believes that this documentary is going to bring transparency, honesty. These are wonderful themes. But because groups, as a black man I can say in this country, because when our mind goes to these really challenging scenes when we think of interactions with public safety folks, with the police. So we have to, one, not look over or glaze over folks' pain and understand that, but also, like the chief said, present something different and new. My hope is that this is a positive coverage and that folks can truly find some hope within the coverage of our police department. That's my hope. But also, we would be remiss to not think that not everyone's going to see it like that.
Yeah, thanks for expanding on that. I thought it was a good question that you asked during that meeting. I also want to be mindful of the time, but I heard of a new development that's coming into your ward. It was announced by former Commissioner Bingoe about a new development that would be 4-story mixed use. Could you tell us a little bit about that project that's coming into the
that project is new for me. I'm really excited. What I'm excited about is, I can quickly say what I'm excited about that project is, Boston Square Neighborhood Association, is working to have some sort of community benefit agreements. They want for these developers who are coming into our ward to work hand in hand with the community to allow folks to use the space, for example. So I'm really happy to see anyone doing housing right now. We need it at all different income levels in all different ways. But I'm also really excited to see, and I'm hopeful that the former commissioner and his business partner will show that you can do development in a very good way. Yeah,
definitely. I thought it was notable that during a recent public meeting, during the presentation of this, they mentioned that it would have commercial space reserved for businesses in the community that are serving the community, and they did an assessment of needs of the community, and optometry and dentistry came up as different needs, and it was also said that the housing would be below market rate, which are all things that we've been talking about as we talk about neighborhood development. And
across the board, neighbors are reaching out and saying we need housing accessibility, which truly means that we need to be looking at new ways to see what affordable means for folks. And that's a bigger conversation that I am so honored to work with my colleagues and the mayor and city staff on how to really address this concern. I'm happy that we just got recently close to $200,000 put to our affordable housing fund. We know this is an issue, and we want to pull every lever and turn over every stone to see how we can, make housing better here in Grand Rapids.
Are there any other developments coming to the Third Ward, whether it be housing or commercial, that you're excited about?
I don't know if I'm excited about what it could mean for us, but the Indian Trails Golf Course, we just had a feasibility study done. So seeing, would it be a good investment to basically revamp this space and add more parking? Because on a sunny day in the Third Ward, folks flock to this. It's good green space. And if folks are familiar with Topgolf, it could be sort of like that. So, a bar, entertainment, revamped, possible indoor golfing for the winter. So I'm excited about that, and I think that may possibly spark other development along the 28th Street corridor and in the Third Ward. So I am optimistically looking into that. My other Third Ward colleague, Commissioner Perdue, does golf. Okay. So I might want to try out the bar while she golfs, if this happens.
I was going to ask, are you a golfer?
No, but I enjoy a little drink and a little chat.
Yeah, and I've heard you talk about green space before. I know that you're a big fan of outdoor space for recreation. Before we get into some more detailed things, you've been hosting listening sessions since you've taken office. What is the purpose for these listening sessions?
Well, because I know firsthand, as someone who's been an advocate, who's worked behind these big politicians. I worked on Governor Whitmer's Campaign 18, just recently got the first black woman on the Michigan Supreme Court, Justice Bolden, and these conversations are done so quickly, and it almost feels like marketing. The mayor and I want to flip that on its head, where we have more deep conversations with our community, then make the decision, rather than make these decisions and then say, hey, we all thought we were so intelligent and smart, do you like it? That's marketing. That's not public service. And so we are working to flip the script on that and modernize how we do, policy here locally. So that's the reason behind those, and meeting people where they are. It is hard to get to City Hall at 2 p.m. or 7 p.m. for my neighbors who are working 2 and 3 jobs. So I did the first one in my barber shop, and it was wonderful to have people come out and tell me like it is. And the next one will be in May, and it's going to be education-centered, family-centered, what we want to see for our youth and the next generation.
Are you always hosting these in the Third Ward?
Yeah, so it's only for us. Sometimes we just need things like that.
I get that. It is time for us to take another break, so we'll get back to this conversation. And when we return, we'll be answering questions from viewers like you. To take part in the conversation, send in a question to cityconnection@grcmc.org or on the Rapidians Instagram story. Welcome back to City Connection. It's April 7, 2025, and we are joined by 3rd Ward Commissioner Marshall Kilgore. We left last section of the show talking about your listening sessions and why you have them. I was wondering if there's anything that you've taken away from the listening session that you've had so far.
Yeah, well, similar to why I joined the April 5th protests, what I've learned is folks in this political moment, in this political climate, are deeply anxious, deeply fearful that their livelihood, things like Social Security, can be taken away. That's one thing that I've taken away. Another one is that something bolstered this understanding that I already had before I came in, which is half of this job is showing up. A lot of people have simply said that, thank you for being here. Before the April 5th protests, myself, Congresswoman Skolton, my state representative Christian Grant, my colleagues from the city, Commissioner Belchak and Knight, joined us. We all joined for a town hall. It really is just listening to people, deeply listening, not having this perfect, politically correct response ready for them out of your pocket, here we go, but listening and looking them in the eye and saying what you care about, what's keeping you up at night is also keeping me up at night, and I also care for it. And that is the response. That's what I've learned, is to keep showing up is the message. No matter what theme or concern folks are sharing, they're sharing, we want representatives to keep showing up. And we're seeing that at the federal level where, they'll have an empty chair where their congressperson is supposed to be because they aren't showing up. So at the local level, even though this is part-time, even though I can't directly affect some of these scary things, I can listen to you and I can show you what I'm doing at the local level to combat some of these challenges. So that's the lesson, is to keep showing up and that we need folks to speak truth to power. And I am committed to do that.
Great. So in May, did you have a date?
Not just yet. So we will be releasing that on my social media or my website, marshallkilgore.com, and that will be released here soon.
Great.
So we're so excited.
Another one coming up next month, though, if you are a 3rd Ward resident. But we're at the fun part of the show now. We'll be taking questions from viewers, starting with no one else but Captain Slappy on Reddit. Captain Slappy says, recently, Grand Rapids experienced a storm with heavy winds that resulted in damage to electrical transformers, resulting in 200 gallons of oil flowing into the Grand River near Millennium Park. Residents were frustrated when trying to report the issue to city officials, emergency services, Parks Department, allegedly being disregarded and told it wasn't the city officials' responsibility before residents came together and were able to receive help from Michigan's Eagle. Although the environmental damage was thankfully relatively small and controlled in a timely manner, with Eagle directing consumers' energy to clean up the spill, it is concerning that efforts to reach the city about a local environmental issue were met with disinterest. Should the City of Grand Rapids governing body and officials be considered a resource at all when dealing with potential risks to our environment? Even if organizations such as Eagle are the appropriate group to deal with these kinds of problems, should the city at least be prepared to work with concerned citizens and be able to contact those kinds of organizations after receiving reports?
Yeah.
Long one.
Yeah, long but deeply important. And I wish they could, my inbox, as soon as I heard word of that, which I was actually speaking with the mayor's youth council, and they talked about that, I got alerted to that immediately. I sent an email that probably had typos and everything to the city manager and said, I'm deeply concerned about this. So yes, we should always be looked towards as a resource for anything that's happening in this city. Because my job as a city commissioner, we have a very committed, dedicated city manager that as soon as I sent that, told me what Eagle was doing. We have to work with our different levels of government. And that is something that I've done throughout my career. So although this wasn't within our sphere of control, most problems are in our sphere of influence, meaning that we can pick up the phone, we can make the calls, we can connect you with the correct resource. So always, I am so sorry to hear that folks didn't have a good experience with this. We are working on that. We have given more resources to 311. Next month in May will be budget month. It'll be my first budget season with the city. And, there are already talks right now for, city commissioners to possibly get more support staff so we can field these concerns from our neighbors quicker, more efficient, and with more energy. And I'm very thankful for our 311 service, but I believe that I know I can speak for myself, and I will continue to want more resources so when we have issues like this, we have people who can field those calls, make those connections, because every second counts. This was from a transformer from that storm. It was mineral oil, which is safe in certain quantities. This is my geeky moment. I love stuff like this and care deeply about our environment. So I'm right there with, what was the person's name?
Captain Slappy?
Captain, so thank you, Captain.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep working to make these city services even more efficient.
Great. This question comes from a documenter. Scott, the documenter, asks, what is the difference between a CIA, or Corridor Improvement Authority, and a BID, a Business Improvement District, and why does Uptown have both?
I'm still learning right there with them. So I'm on both for Uptown, and that's why they put me there, is to learn. Uptown Business Improvement District, they get to do different things. So they basically, from my understanding, crowdfund with the bid. So the Corridor Improvement Authority is just that folks along these corridors working together to look for different improvements, facade improvements. They have certain grants that they can have. And the Business Improvement District, they are able to crowdfund. Like, that's the mechanism that I know, because we just, gave the thumbs up to the new assessment fee for the Uptown bid, where every business owner within this, unless they're nonprofit like a church or WEMIAC, which is within Uptown, then you pay this fee that is based on the length of your storefront. It's a really interesting little formula to make it, but they crowdfund for certain things. So that's the difference there, is I believe businesses work together using different formulas to allow you to have folks that like clean up trash and do landscaping. They use those funds to then do really important things for the businesses, specifically businesses.
I saw in the recent Uptown bid plan that there was a 3% increase.
Yes.
Is that for the businesses then in the Uptown district?
Yeah, and I was really happy to be a part of that conversation, because I know right now times are tough. This economy for working class folks, even for folks, our small business owners, it's hard. They still have not recovered from COVID, and I'm deeply concerned. I think of River North, Rachel Lee, who, she's talking about how hard it is for businesses right now, and so many business owners within the Third Ward have told me this as well. So that fee, the 3%, is a small adjustment for inflation, right? So they worked to make sure that there was actually a higher number that they could have went with, but the 3% would help with inflation and as time has went on to get those costs. So then again, this helps that corridor stay safe. It helps the environment, cleans, so they hire people to clean things, and landscaping. Those are two examples I can think of for that. But and then also different programming that this corridor does as well. So they had like this business hopping thing. Like I said, I'm learning so much. Next time I'll be able to give you specifics on this, but that 3% increase was really needed, and they actually have an executive director who helps with all of that, who can give people more information. So if you go to Uptown, you'll be able to find, and she's really great, and she'll be able to give you much better details than me. I'm still learning, and I love to say that. I think we need more people in these roles who are open to saying that we don't have all the answers. So I'm learning along with you, and inbox me in a few weeks, and I'll have the answer for that one.
Definitely, definitely. Another question coming from Ted. What is the city's plan if the river continues to rise above safe flood levels? I saw that we're at action level right now.
Yep, from rainfall. That is one thing that I will continue to talk with city staff. But what I will say is we have a lot of plans. We've had a lot of riverfront restoration projects, and all of those sort of have those contingency plans built into these new projects. So leaders before me that approved some of these new riverfront projects are thinking of that, right? We're not just hoping things stay the same. And as someone who understands things like climate change, we know we have to be thinking of those. So I believe that's something that city staff is keeping in mind, and we'll work with, you have to work with even groups like FEMA, right? Because there's a clear and present danger with water and flooding. So we're working to make sure that in the future we can have the infrastructure present that will keep our residents safe.
Great. Yeah, I saw a picture of a crane outside of the museum that was just almost completely submerged
And
in
the
water.
wonderful thing for that, just like the mineral oil, Eagle already worked on that, has checked that vehicle to make sure there's nothing leaking from it. Because, you know, I was once again, another email, I'm deeply concerned. And, you know, when we see those things once again, and I'm thankful that people did submit those pictures. You know, social media is powerful. Connecting with your, you know, your local electeds is powerful because it can cause change. You saw that, we got the pictures, we made sure Eagle investigated to make sure that vehicle can be submerged right now. And it's at such a high level that crews cannot go in to get it out just yet. So I believe within next week, the crews will be able to go out and get that vehicle out safely, because we don't want them to be in danger trying to get something else out.
Right. Hopefully the waters go back down to a normal level.
Yes.
Question from Nikki: why did the city remove employees from the comptroller's office?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. And once again, that was a decision that was made before my tenure. And, you know, the city manager really has agency over employees, right? We have agency over appointed officials, city manager, treasurer, the attorney, and that's within my sphere of control. The city manager has agency over who's in departments and moving them around. So anyone who is an employee of the city of Grand Rapids is really their supervisor, would technically be, at the end of the day, the city manager. So they believe that it would be best for, I believe, things like efficiency to move those employees to a different office. So that's the understanding that I have. And I'm continuing to, you know, look into that situation to get a better understanding of what that office does. I am on our fiscal committee, so I work with the comptroller. It's only been a few months, and I'm learning more and more about what that office does. It's very important work, and we want it to be efficient. So I believe that's the word that I remember the city manager using, and I'm hopeful that that decision shows that within this upcoming year. I know it's a pretty new decision.
Lauren has a question. With the cost of steel and concrete going up, how is that going to affect all the development projects the city wants to do? The amphitheater, soccer field, etc. Will that burden fall on taxpayers or private interests?
Yeah, you know, that's a challenge. This is one of those challenges that we have to weigh. I would encourage people, we just talked, perfect segue, tune into the fiscal committee. And we have these conversations a lot of what bonds do we have? What do we have out there in the market? Thankfully, leaders before me and the city manager and city staff have made very prudent decisions. We are in a very good financial place, right? We have reserves or a rainy day fund, for lack of better words. So this city is in a very good place, right? A lot of folks are talking about a possible recession. In the last recession that we had in 2008, Grand Rapids looked very different. There was not a rainy day fund. Now, we're not in a recession. Now, we don't get to one, but we're in a different place. So, you know, we talked about today contingency plans and thinking about the future and being proactive. I'm so thankful for the previous commission, my current colleagues that have rolled over to this commission, and city staff for having plans for that. But the city treasurer has talked about this, what that impact may be, as recent as our last fiscal committee. So I would go to YouTube, type in fiscal committee or morning committees, I believe it is on YouTube, to see more conversation about what those implications may be. But right now, everything is a question mark. We don't know. We were going to have tariffs. We weren't. It was going to be this percentage. It's now that, right? So a lot of it has not happened yet. We won't know until the rubber hits the road. But the best thing I can say is, due to the prudent decisions, our taxpayers, our neighbors will not have as heavy as a burden as other cities who haven't made prudent financial decisions in the past.
You talk about federal issues. Before we get into another question, I want to touch on this. And you're encouraging folks to watch these local meetings. What is the connection there? By watching local meetings and getting a better understanding of decisions that are being made at the White House, where's the connection there for folks?
Because you can sort of see how the dominoes fall, right? A lot of people are, the action comes to their home once the dominoes have fell completely. You know, when we were at the fiscal committee, the treasurer goes through all of this money and how these investments and bonds and things that the city has, and says this is what the market looks like. He goes over market trends, decisions that are happening outside of our sphere of control, but we do have influence, right? So he goes and talks about market trends, and I'm so thankful for the professionals and the experts we have on city staff that keep the pulse of these issues. So that's that connection of there are city staff officials, because it will impact the projects and the things that we're doing, who have the pulse of this, who that is their job. And our treasurer he's a great guy to just keep updated with.
Yeah.
So there's that connection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I find local government to be much more grounding than federal government. So if you can learn about what's going on a national level and see the impact of it in your local community, I think that's really helpful and might improve some like news literacy and government literacy.
And it's grounding because, you know, the one thing about us being nonpartisan is we're not putting a political view on it. This is what the market is saying. This is what has happened. Here's the impact. It's very simple and digestible, which I like as a member of the fiscal committee, because then I can take it back to our community and say, this is what's happening. This is what we're projecting. And right now, sadly, it's just going back and saying, it's a big question mark, but just like our own relationship with our own budgets, when you've got that savings account, it feels much better if something happens down the road. And that's where we're at.
Great. Well, it's time for us to take another break.
Okie dokie.
When we return, we'll be taking more questions from the public.
It's morning in Grand Rapids. Do you know what's going on in your city? Stay informed about what's happening in your community with The Rapidian, your source for hyperlocal news and information. The Rapidian is a community-focused news source powered by local residents like you. Our volunteer writers and reporters create content that hits close to home about topics like local government, business, schools, events, and people. The Rapidian goes beyond the headlines to provide in-depth coverage of issues that affect Grand Rapids directly, so you can stay in the know. We aim to uplift the community by sharing positive, inspiring stories of growth, progress, and neighborhood pride. The Rapidian is your neighborhood newspaper for the digital age. Follow us on our website and social media to stay connected to your community. This is The Rapidian.
Welcome back to City Connection. We're joined here by 3rd Ward Commissioner Marshall Kilgore, taking questions from the public. Our first question in this round is from Ashley. Ashley asks, with pending federal funding cuts to both schools and senior services, what is the city doing to help bridge those gaps for people in Grand Rapids?
Yeah, I think of first, this is our 5th year of supporting summer camps here in the city. We just approved at Joe Taylor Park a collaboration with Baxter Community Center. This was a $60,000 investment to do, summer camp. And that is lunch for students. Nutrition is so deeply important. Supporting our youth, period, to me, is a goal and something that I really want to fight for because we're seeing these challenges. So making sure they have lunch, making sure they have activities good activities that are both educational and fun during the summer. Because what I know to be true, as someone whose parent was a juvenile probation officer for over 20 years, she cannot wait to retire. But what I've learned is when you have fun, good, healthy things to do, you stay out of trouble. And so these are really good ways to, give those kids, our youth, activities, lunch, field trips, and safety during the summer. So that's an example of what we're doing to contribute to our part. And I am a part of the work group for the some of the federal dollars that we get, and we have such dedicated staff that we did a contingency plan of if we get less, there's like these community development grants that the city gets, that cities across the nation get, and if we get these projected cuts, we want to make sure people's programming can continue. So if it's 5 people doing school programming, for example, we'll just, taper down their investment rather than cutting anyone's services. So we're working hard to talk about some of the projected cuts and things that we see on the horizon.
Great. I think now is also a good time to look out for other kinds of community welfare too, where folks are stepping up, like community gardens are always...
Community gardens or mutual aid. I'm a follower of their pages. I've supported folks before with, rent or helping with car fixes. Can you give someone a ride asking for nothing in return? That's community, and that's what we need right now. But as a leader, an elected leader, we also need leaders who are going to fight for the investment that we need here.
Definitely. Question from Jean. At the protest this last weekend, I saw some aggressive and rude actions taken by GRPD toward protesters. What is the city's policy toward protests this large? And how do you allow for people to assemble and speak without disrupting businesses or endangering people's lives?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions in that question, but I can respond to the theme, which, we have constitutional rights. You have a right to protest, to peacefully protest, to organize. Those are American rights, and I want to continue to see that happen here in Grand Rapids, as I was one of those protesters, right? I believe that there's a permitting process, so your permitting through the city is, approved. So I think that's depending on whatever size it is. I think that is one of the questions with permitting is what is the size? What would you like? Are you trying to close down a street and protest in the street, or are you going to stay on the sidewalk? So our permitting process is open, it's transparent. I am saddened to hear that they may have had an altercation with the Grand Rapids Police Department. And the chief, I believe that, their staff works with their officers. But in terms of what I have agency over, which is making sure that folks can have the right to protest in our city, that is your right. But we also have to be aware of our neighbors while we do that. And the protests that I saw on April 5th did just that. It was peaceful. So, I think people, no matter what size it is, staying on the sidewalk, chanting, I believe that they were permitted to use Rosa Parks Square. So, things like that, continue to do that, and things will continue to go well.
Great. Another question from Bianca. Most of the things, quote, keeping me up at night aren't local issues, they're national. I appreciate that local officials want to hear my concerns, but is there anything local officials can do when I'm worried about a bill at the state or federal level?
Of course, so that's that sphere of influence that I'm talking about. Just scheduled a meeting with our Congresswoman, who I consider a friend, and our professional relationship is just that of I need to deliver what my constituents are saying to her. Some of those messages where, yes, it is a bill, things like the SAVE Act that has a lot of people who, from women who their names are changed, and those documents don't match, to folks within my family who they were moving from the South. This was Jim Crow era. They don't have those documents from those southern counties decades and decades ago, right? And they still deserve that right to vote. So those are the stories that I'm going to carry with me into the meeting with the Congresswoman and throughout our relationship as a commissioner and her as a Congresswoman. So that's what we can do. I'm a member of our legislative team who talks about what we're going to fight for in DC and Lansing. And within our legislative agenda, we put our values in there too. We want to be welcoming. We want to be an inclusive city, right? So we want to support policies that do just that. So we do have, I believe, significant influence at what happens at different levels. We just have to have leaders who will tap into that and who will use their voice for better. And I'm committed to doing just that.
And it's a lot easier to get the ear of your commissioner than it is your senator.
It shouldn't be, though. It shouldn't be. And that's why I was really happy to see every level of government. Senator, when he brings staff, was at the town hall that had our state representatives. So you had your rep, you had your senator, you had your congresswoman, and your local people. And we had a county commissioner, Chris Pacala, in the audience. So I don't know. I won't give people that easy way out.
No.
You should have every avenue to these folks who believe in you and have no other choice but to believe in in the decisions you make. There should be an easy avenue to connect with you, and that's what I'm committed to keep doing, and we'll push for. My colleagues are committed to it. The second ward commissioners are doing coffee with commissioners. Alicia Marie has a good website going. She goes to almost every community event. All of my colleagues, the mayor is doing Mayor Mondays. I'm very proud to work alongside folks who are also committed to connecting with our community.
Question from Tommy. You mentioned working with FEMA to help with potential disasters. Do the city emergency plans currently factor in help from federal agencies that may or may not have funding or staff during the current administration?
Yeah, good question. Very good question. I don't know the specifics on that, but we do work for natural disasters, we do work with the state and federal level. I can say that we have identified several roles within the city that could possibly, I can't say for certain, once again, we're just in a time and a period of uncertainty, but there could be possible positions at the city level that could be impacted by federal funding. But that's truthful. That is something I have seen of sort of the response to natural disasters, having less money and resources towards it. But once again, that's something that I feel like we are in a good financial spot, and that we will use everything within our influence to help with natural disasters.
Great. Question from Mary Ann. Does the city regularly update commissioners and the mayor? Let me read this again. Does the city regularly update commissioners and the mayor on how federal or state policies are going to impact local funding? If so, how often?
So we get all different types of updates. We meet, I believe, once monthly for that legislative team, where we get a lot of really good updates. I'm actually really proud of this year. We made those meetings public, so those minutes and things can also be accessed by everyday neighbors. You don't have to be a commissioner to get those. I will say, once again, we have a very dedicated team of city staff and our city manager. So anytime there is something that we know neighbors are going to be concerned about, that they know that neighbors are going to be concerned about, they send it to us. So I can't give the cadence of that, but I will say I've been very pleasantly surprised with how the city keeps us abreast of issues and funding challenges and really good factual information that they can share with us. So we're updated, and then we can share those out to our networks. And so, yeah, there's not a cadence with that, because everything at the federal level recently has been sort of willy-nilly, but we do receive updates.
Great. Last question, this one comes from Haley. For a protest permit, even you said you were surprised about the number of protesters that showed up. What happens if a protest ends up larger than expected and expands beyond the permit application? Is a police response necessary?
That's a very good question. And, I don't, like I said, I'm someone who is fine on saying that's something I'll look into with our charter and continue to research. I think that as long as the rules are followed, right, as long as guidelines that you agreed to, right, like if your permit said to stay on the sidewalk and, you thought you were going to get 300 and now you have 3,000, you should be good, right? As long as we're following city ordinances and rules, you should be fine, right? In terms of the GRPD response, once again, I don't have agency over that. I can't give them clear directions or guidelines, right?
Yeah.
But I would say to continue to follow what the permit says, and you should be good here. Because, that's sort of a natural part of organizing. And I believe, you do have that constitutional right? So as long as you aren't hurting anybody, come together and stay out of the street so you can be safe. But why not?
Great. It looks like those are all of the questions.
Those were very good questions.
The public, I know.
I'm going to be watching this back and finding answers.
Notes.
So thank you for folks. And it's such a time of grace. I also think that's really important right now, of giving people grace. And I may not have the answer now, but I'm committed to finding it. And I am also committed to people holding me accountable for that. So for folks who reached out, like I said, please inbox me. There are multiple ways, and we will find an answer.
So in this moment that we're in right now, have you felt a shift in people? If so, what are you feeling?
There's such a shift. I think there's a shift towards people, like I said, that I was amazed and very proud and happy to see that neighbors were excited and committed to staying engaged, even through dysfunction. There's also a shift that is very natural. And I think we all in our personal lives have ways of this where you just want to sort of disengage. There's a lot coming at you, and you sort of just want to, I call it in my personal life, I just want to hide under the bed, if things are that rough, right? Like, wow, that was challenging. And we all have those, but that's why community support and help and togetherness, like I said, love and togetherness in this moment is important, because we can help pull people out of that disengagement and let them know at your own pace, we need you to be a part of these conversations. We need you to come to a city commission meeting and voice your concerns. And we need you to, for example, ask your commissioner, how does this, this permitting process go, so that we can all together have a better understanding of what goes on in our community. So there's a shift, and there's even more stronger emotions regarding political actions than I've ever seen. And I think that we can channel that energy in such a good way. I really do.
Great. Yeah, I think a lot of folks are looking for action or places to put action right now. And I've been driving home the local route,
Yes.
doing things locally.
Yeah, I'm the chair of appointments. We have so many committees and boards. Make change. You will be making changes. You will see yourself vote on something and then it comes in front of the commission. It is possible. And, like I have a public safety appointment coming up. So I am, asking folks from the 3rd Ward who may want to be a part of that to reach out to me, right? So we talked a lot about interacting with the GRPD. Every time we have a public safety, the chief of police and fire give a presentation on the work they're doing to keep our community safe. And as someone on that committee, or if from the public can ask questions, can have these good conversations. So I would encourage people to get involved in that way and serve on a board. They don't meet every week, once a month, some of them, and you can make some really positive change.
Yeah, I don't know that everyone knows that you don't have to be an elected official to serve here in Grand Rapids, and I think there's quite a few. Are those open on a rolling basis, those positions?
Yes. There's always people with life changes, going off, coming on, and everything from urban agriculture to mobile GR, talking about something else that is such a love of mine of, connectivity and accessible roads and pedestrian safety. That's really important too. You can directly affect change in that way. And I served on 3 boards before I was here. I think I just couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
I will always make the pitch for the Grand Rapids Documenters, but if you
Yes.
want to get more familiar, now is a good time to go check out. We've covered quite a few different bodies, but there are a lot of different boards and committees and commissions in Grand Rapids, and we're always trying to add more to our list that we've covered, but it's a good place to start to get familiar with.
Oh yes, local journalism is so important. We need things that aren't behind a paywall
Yeah.
to educate our community. So I will
That is our
always
goal.
support our local journalists. It's always so good to connect with you.
Thank you. You too. Well, I want to give you the last few minutes to talk about your third ward.
Yeah.
Things that you're excited about. I know you talked about the golf course that's coming. But what are the big topics, the big issues happening in the third ward that folks around the city need to know about?
Yeah, we talked a little bit earlier about the close to $200,000 investment in the Affordable Housing Fund. That's really what I'm zeroed in on now. It's wonderful. This is not a problem that only Grand Rapids has. It's around the nation. We are in a housing crisis. So I think that is something that I'm really zeroed in on. Like I said, the budget season is coming up here in May, and I'm going to try to pull every lever I can and work with my colleagues who also view this as a deeply concerning issue in our community to see what we can do about housing. So that's really a priority. We talked about some development that different developers are doing, but I really want to, zero in on affordable housing where everyone deserves to be able to live here. So that's another really positive thing that I'm excited about, and sort of a theme, right? When you talk about big things, housing is one, connectivity and transportation. How can we extend our bus lines that we have? That's a conversation that I'm thinking of. How can we help pedestrian safety? We have a few protected bike lanes. I'd like to see more. I would like to see a city, when I think of big thinking of what the city could look like, if we had a city that was pedestrian-centric and people-centric rather than vehicle-centric, not only would it help the environment with emitting less carbon emissions, not only would it keep folks safe, our families safe, but it would also help businesses. You often stop by businesses when you're not going 60 miles an hour.
Yeah, that helps. If you're just walking right past.
Yeah, so those are sort of the themes that I'm focusing on. Housing, number one, because it's so pressing. I'm excited to support the mayor's initiative that he announced at his State of the City, which was the accessory dwelling unit task force. I'll be excited to keep on that, where you can turn a garage into a rental unit. I'm excited. We need these innovative ways to combat the challenges we see. So housing, helping the environment, transportation, and also mental health. I don't know if we talked about the new behavioral health crisis center. Did we discuss that
We
just
haven't
yet?
yet.
So that's at Trinity Health, right? It's a 16-bed facility. Folks can admit themselves, stay up to 3 days. They can bring their family. And the awesome thing here is we talked about a lot of anxiety here. We would be remiss to not invest in this. So that's also a theme that I really want to invest in for the third ward, is our emotional and mental health. And I'm happy that we're doing that through this crisis center. And this also, so many folks who experience this crisis as emotional or mental are often put in our jails. So this helps our first responders be able to focus on public safety and help our neighbors who are going through a challenging time know that we're there for them. So that's the sort of another theme that I'd like to invest in for our third ward neighbors going forward.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing all of that, and thank you for coming on our show
Thank
today.
you.
We are all out of time, but thank you again to our guest, Third Ward Commissioner Marshall Kilgore, for coming in and sharing your insights, not just about the third ward, but about federal funding and all of the things I'm sure you felt a little unfair to talk about as a city commissioner.
Oh, I
We
loved it.
appreciate
I loved it. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you to all of you for at home for tuning in and sending in your questions. Don't forget, you can always watch rebroadcasts throughout the month of April on cable GRTV's Channel 25 or GRTV YouTube page. See you next month, Grand Rapids.
The Grand Rapids Community Media Center is committed to creating a diverse and inclusive environment for all community members. It is a place where community voices are heard, valued, and lifted through media. We seek to provide area residents with a platform to participate in free speech, be engaged with the community, and share their diverse voices. As a multimedia platform organization, we provide and support a variety of community resources, including our radio station, WYCE 88.1 FM, our TV station, GRTV, our hyper-local news program, The Rapidian, web services, and our historic theater, Wealthy Theater.
WYCE is West Michigan's only community radio station that is listener-supported and volunteer-powered. WYCE uses local voices to help listeners discover and celebrate different services, cultures, and events. What I really like about programming music in WYCE is I get to not only interact with listeners and local musicians, but I get to put together a musical collage every week and give it away to the universe. As a volunteer programmer, you get the training on how to use equipment, how to access music from the library, and how to put together a great show that showcases local and national artists and still has your creativity included.
The Web Services Department helps West Michigan nonprofits connect, learn, create, and share through locally built and accessible websites. We help nonprofits strengthen their online presence by developing one-of-a-kind websites tailored to their specific needs. The Web Services team can take care of all the technical needs of getting a new site up and running, including website hosting, domain name registration, theme development, and page layout. Websites are built with accessibility and responsiveness in mind, making sure our projects are available on any screen and accessible to people of all abilities. We are passionate about helping organizations in the nonprofit sector effectively communicate their stories online, promoting equity and media access with our affordable services.
Wealthy Theater is a historic theater on the southeast side of Grand Rapids. It was built in 1911, and today it stands as a performing arts center, historic cinema, and community venue. We provide a space for community connection, where community members can get together, enjoy different shows and different events, from concerts to comedy, musicals, theater, film screenings, you name it. Anybody from the community can sign up to be a member and rent one of our spaces to host their event. We have a staff here at the theater that helps make all the events here happen, as well as a great community of volunteers. The goal is to bring the community together, bring audiences together, artists together, create experiences where those two can connect. Whether you're an audience member who wants to come see a show or you're somebody who wants to put on a show, Wealthy Theater is a space for you.
The Rapidian is a hyper-local news source powered by, for, and of the people of Grand Rapids, Michigan. We launched in 2009 using funds from local organizations and generous donors, and this community-driven platform empowers residents to share their stories, post articles, and keep track of local events and issues. By emphasizing citizen journalism, the Rapidian provides a unique grassroots perspective and a vital news service for the residents of Grand Rapids. In 2023, we are relaunching the Rapidian with the Grand Rapids Documenters program, where we train and pay local citizens to cover public meetings, empowering residents with the tools and resources to strengthen the news media landscape in Grand Rapids and become more civically engaged.
GRTV airs public access television programming made by and for the Grand Rapids community, amplifying their voices to support a diverse and vibrant democracy. We provide the tools, training, and broadcast platform for free speech. Community members can take classes on video and production features, borrow professional equipment, editing software, and use of our studio facilities to create their own content. We help community members connect, learn, create, and share.